So there was a guy who recently Bitcoin hit $100,000 for Bitcoin, which is it's been growing for years. So there was a guy who was like into the idea of Bitcoin, and he had like a couple of Bitcoins. He had like 2 or 3 Bitcoins, and he was like, you know what? I believe that in 10 years Bitcoin is going to go way up. But he didn't want to. He couldn't wait. So he found there was a program that he could get frozen and then sleep for 10 years, wake up just as if it was like tomorrow, and then see how much his Bitcoin was. So he went to this program. He went to sleep like that. 10 years later, he wakes up, right, travels in times for 10 years. And the first thing he does, he looks up how much Bitcoin is worth. $1 billion. The guy is blown away.
You heard about a guy who went to a store to pay, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so rich, I'm just gonna pay with Bitcoin." Like a long time ago, give the guy like 10 Bitcoin on a hard drive. The guy lost the hard drive, but he looks at the money now. If the guy had those 10 Bitcoin, he's a million.
So check it out. So this guy, he has like 3 Bitcoin. Now he sees they're worth $1 billion each. He's a billionaire. So what is the first thing he do? He's starving. He's been sleeping for 10 years. So he goes and gets the fanciest meal. He orders everything on the menu. And then finally the waiter comes with the bill. He says, that'll be $200 billion. Okay. So this is a Torah about time travel. Time travel, guys, time travel is real. And we can see it from the Torah, and we can see it from this week's Parsha. Check this out. We'll go point by point. So in this week's Parsha, toward the end of the Parsha, we have Yitzchak lived the longest of the Avos. It says, Yitzchak me'as shana v'shmanim shana. He lived 180 years, which is a full life. Now, Yitzchak he was a special one of the Avos. But he was the only one of the 3 Avos that lived to 180. You would think Avraham should also have lived to 180. But Rashi explains in the earlier Parsha, he only lived to 175. It says so. And so why did he live to 175? Rashi explains because Yitzchak had 2 children, Yaakov and Esav, when he was 60 years old. The Torah says Esav and Yaakov. It said when they grew old enough, right when Avraham died. It says that Hashem took 5 years off his life in order that he didn't see his grandson Esav go letarvus ra, go on the wicked path. So that's the answer to the first question. Why did Yitzchak live 100 years and Avram only 175? So the Chachamim say that he only lived 175 years so he wouldn't see Esav go off into the bad path, into a wicked path. That's question number 1. So here's the question. So how old was Esav when he began to go down a wicked path? So it's understood, as Rashi explains, that when a person becomes a man, that's when you can see really their character. So when does a person become a man according to Torah? 13 years old. So Esav, how old was he? When 13 years old. So now, Torah says very clearly, question 3, how old was Yitzchak when Esav was born? How old was Yitzchak when Esav was born? 18. It says 60. He was 60 years old, right? That says clearly in Torah. Now, question 4, how old was Avraham when Yitzchak was born? 100, right? He was 100 years old when Yitzchak was born. So let's figure this out. So now, how old should Avram have been? Question 5. When Esav began to go down a wicked path? 165. Hold on, count it. 173, that's right. That's answer for number 5. He should have been 173. What happened to those extra years? The Torah says he died at 175. So where did those 2 years go? All right, so now the Rebbe brings up an answer that he rejects from one of the Balei Tosafos, Das Sekanim, which says that it could be that Esav hid his wickedness for 2 years. So he turned 13, started to get all wicked, but then hid it for 2 years. So it wasn't until he was 15. That's one answer. The Rebbe doesn't like that answer. Why? He says, why take 5 years off of Avram's life? If he hid it for 2 years, let him hide it for 5 years, or however many years he needs to hide it. Let Avram have his 180 years. So Rebbe doesn't like that answer. But he brings a different answer from another Balei Tosafos from the Rivah, which says an amazing answer like this. That when Yitzchak was brought up to the Akedah, he was 37 years old. That Rashi tells us very clearly. He figures that out because Sarah Imenu died at 127. She was 90 when Yitzchak was born. And Sarah died right at the time of the Akedah. So Yitzchak was 37 years old at the Akedah. Then it said at the time of the Akedah, it announced that Rivka was born. And then 3 years later, when she was 3 years old, that Yitzchak met Rivka, and that's when they got married. That's what we learned from Rashi. We learned from the Psukim of the Torah. So, what does the Rival say? Say these 3 years that in this world it passed 3 years, but for Yitzchak at the Akedah he entered into Gan Eden, physically entered into Gan Eden, which is a realm beyond time, and he didn't age a bit. So he was in there for what the Rebbe said 2 years, 2 full years, which approaching 3 years. So that accounts for those 3 years. So when Yitzchak, it says that Yitzchak was 60 years old, right? Abraham was not, according to this opinion, Abraham was not 160, which he should have been, right? Abraham was already 162 at that point.
And that's when also his soul got, the whole thing, and then when Rivka got his soul.
Yeah, right. So a lot of things happen with the souls, but this answers a lot of questions about Yitzchak and about this story. Check this out. How can we account for those extra years? Yitzchak was in Gan Eden for 2 years, which was beyond time. He didn't age a moment. Yitzchak, the moment he entered into Gan Eden at the Akedah, from the moment he exited when Rivka was 3 years old, when he met Rivka for the first time, 2 years passed in the world and 0 years passed for him. He didn't age a moment. So really, when it says he was 60, so how did it feel like? Good question. How did it feel like for him? This answers a lot of questions. Now, when Yitzchak came back into this world, there's other people in history who have entered into Gan Eden. It says Rabbi Akiva entered into Gan Eden. It says that the Baal Shem Tov, we have stories, his neshama went in Gan Eden. The difference is these tzaddikim entered Gan Eden spiritually, but physically they stayed in this world. Yitzchak was the only one that we know of that entered, not only entered the Gan Eden physically, and then returned to this world and brought Gan Eden with him. So it explains a lot of things in the Torah. For example, first of all, when Yaakov walks in, and it says that he said, my son smells like the smell of the field. Rashi explains this is Gan Eden. He smelled Gan Eden coming with Yaakov. How did he know what Gan Eden smelled like? Because he was there. And not only was he there, but he brought it back with him into the world. That's number one. Number two, well, Yitzchak knew what it was.
He has to describe it.
Well, check this out. We're going to. The Rebbe describes it in terms of teaching us what we can learn from this. So, secondly, when we're not up to 7 yet. So when Yitzchak gives Yaakov the bracha, he tells him Mishmanei haaretz. I'm blessing you with the fat of the land. I'm blessing you with the fat of the land. So what is the fat of the land? That's Gashmias in Harchava, a lot of Gashmias, a lot of wealth. But then Esav comes later, and Esav says, where's my bracha? And what does Yitzchak bless him with? Mishmanei haaretz, with the fat of the land. So the Rebbe asked, how could Yitzchak give the same bracha to both of them? He already gave it to Yaakov. How could he also give it to Esav? So the answer is he didn't. He gave him Italy. Italy, at that time of Yitzchak, did not exist yet. According to Medrash, Italy and Rome was created from the ocean at the moment that Shlomo HaMelech married Bas Paro, married the... Yeah? It said there was a malach that stuck a reed in the ocean and it created the land of Italy. So what was Yitzchak giving Esav? He was giving him something that didn't exist yet. So he gave Yaakov the world that existed, and he gave Esav something that didn't exist. So now the Rebbe asked the question, wait a second, there's a halacha. You're not allowed to give a gift that doesn't exist. It's not halachic. It doesn't mean anything. You could say, I'm going to give you $1 million I'll make someday. It doesn't mean anything. If you say, I give you $1 million that's sitting in my bank, then you've acquired that $1 million. So what is the answer? That Yitzchak was beyond time. To Yitzchak, Italy already existed. The future and the past and the present were all one thing. He lived in a realm beyond time while he was in this world. And this brings us to our final point about what Yitzchak brought into this world and why he gave those brachas to the wicked Esav. Because he didn't see Esav the way he was now. Then. He saw Esav the way he is now. Rectified. The tikkun. Esav has become a friend of the Jewish people. Esav is now the champion of the Jewish people. And that's what he saw. That's why he wanted to give Esav the brachas. He saw it. We're going to get to a second. He saw Esav's potential because that was his whole. Yitzchak's whole reality was the perfection of the world. That's what he saw. Why would he what? Why would he change the bad stuff? Not notice the bad stuff? Yeah. Oh, wouldn't he stop? Okay, good point. So we have to understand that the reality that Yitzchak saw was a reality that was beyond time. So did he have so by the way, it says by Yitzchak, just in answer to your question, it said Yitzchak knew, Yitzchak knew that Yosef didn't really die. Yaakov is sitting in mourning, thinking that Yosef was dead, eaten by a wild animal. And Yitzchak, Rashi says, Yitzchak knew it, but he didn't tell Yaakov. Why? Because he figured, Hashem didn't reveal it to Yaakov, it's not my job to tell him. So that maybe explains that.
That we should always see the good in people, even if they seem bad.
That is a lesson, but there's a lesson beyond that. So first of all, so just like Yitzchak saw the good of Esav, so too we can see the good in ourselves and in everybody else because we have the power of Yitzchak. We are beyond time. That's one very, very powerful lesson.
Everyone has the power of Yitzchak inside of us to always see the good in people.
That's right. Always see the best of the person, the best in yourself, the best in another person, even if they need a lot of work to get there. It exists right now for us because we are children of Yitzchak. That's number one. And number two, as we enter the realm of Geula, fellas, time travel is a real thing. There is a realm beyond time that we actually are deeply connected to, and we can bring that into this world. Now, we can think all science fiction and how is actually time travel going to work, and that is really cool to think about. But even more practically, we can transform the world and transform our lives. We have this incredible power because we exist beyond time. So that's the answer to question number 7. That's a practical lesson for us. So have a great Shabbos.